Welcome back to EVPL Presents a special moment in Black history, 2 Men, 1 Life Mission. We've been sharing the stories of 2 founding fathers of Black history, Carter G. Woodson and Arturo Schomburg. Part 2 was largely about their experiences of learning, working, and teaching. Part 3 is entitled Ingredients for Real Success. Every ordinary person who has ever accomplished anything extraordinary in their lives has learned that there are critical decisions to make and big risks to take, challenges, obstacles, and opportunities. These are the special ingredients for real and lasting success. This was also true of both Woodson and Schomburg. Each man's path included just the right ingredients for not only his own personal successes, but the success of Black people everywhere. While Carter was in pursuit of his doctoral degree at Harvard, there was still the sense and belief that Blacks were inferior amongst the white students and professors. And like Arturo's 5th grade teacher, Carter's first history professor did not believe that African Americans had any significant history. However, the stories that Carter had heard back in West Virginia discredited his professor's stance. That very same professor then challenged Carter to prove that African Americans did have a significant history through research. Carter obliged. Carter then enlisted the help of another professor to teach him how to properly do the research that it would take. Although his degree would be in European and American history, Woodson made a vow to prove his first professor wrong. Even through times of uncertainty and the lack of finances, Carter continued to work as a teacher. He even failed his first general exam in American history. After taking the exam again and passing 3 years after the first try, his dissertation was also approved. He had earned his PhD. Armed with his doctoral degree in history, he would now be able to prove that African Americans have a history to be proud of. Even before his dissertation was accepted, he began writing his own history book. Publishers didn't believe that anyone would buy it, so Woodson made a proposal that he would pay for part of the publication costs himself. This interested publishers, and there would be a printing 2 separate times. However, the book still did not reach a wide audience. Things would begin to get heated that same year after the release of the movie, The Birth of a Nation. It depicted images of perfectly happy slaves who had turned savage. African Americans were highly insulted. The NAACP and the National Urban League, founded by William E. Burgard Du Bois, who was the first African American to earn a PhD from Harvard, staged marches but were unsuccessful. It was in the summer of 1915 when Woodson went to an event in Chicago. This event would mark the 50th anniversary of freedom for African Americans. Carter set up a booth to sell books on Black history and posters of famous Black people. He and the other exhibitors talked often about how they wished that they could do something about the film Birth of a Nation to prove it was wrong. It was then that Carter got the idea of creating an organization to promote Black history. In the fall of 1915, it became the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History. And in 1916, the organization's first journal issue of the Journal of Negro History was released. Carter believed that if Blacks knew their history, they could achieve equality of citizenship in American society. Arturo Schomburg's quest to find the glory of his people's history would take him through 3 marriages, the passing of his wives, and the births of 7 children. He continued, however, to make great discoveries. One of which was that a lot of African history had actually been whitewashed. If there was any high achievements, competency, or highly praised people of African descent, They were noted to be only white, and their African roots eradicated. It was very clear that black bondage was the only image many whites wanted portrayed. Despite their best efforts to hide this history, Arturo would find it. As Arturo became more well known as a collector, he came across 2 volumes of books written by Paul Cuffey, one of the richest black men in early America. Paul was a whaler, and they would capture the whales, use them for their blubber to make oil for the lamps in the cities. He felt that blacks should have the right to vote since they had to pay taxes. And as a predecessor of Marcus Garvey, Paul encouraged blacks to return to Africa, where he felt that they would be more successful. Arturo would spend his days as a bank mailroom clerk, but his evenings were spent rubbing elbows with those considered to be the bee's knees of the Harlem Renaissance. To throw out some names, he was often in conversation and would work with Alain Locke, considered to be the father of the Harlem Renaissance, Booker T. Washington, the founder of Tuskegee Institute, W.E.B. Du Bois, the first black man to graduate from Harvard with a PhD and university professor, poets Countee Cullen and Langston Hughes, Jesse Redmond Fawcett, a novelist and poet and editor of the NAACP magazine, Claude Mckay, a writer and poet, Arna Bontemps, another writer and novelist, Georgia Douglas Johnson, a poet and writer, and Aaron Douglas, an artist. All of these famous names would look to Arturo to help open the minds of black people with all his knowledge and discoveries. He willingly loaned out materials, artwork, and even money to help his friends. Home, however, saw very little of him. He was always off traveling and doing lectures and collecting for what seemed to be 8 months out of the year. And when he was home, he and his family was giving tours of his collection. In fact, his collection had almost completely taken over their living space. Cleaning was out of the question, and it would soon become the main focus and attraction of his home life. This concludes 2 Men, 1 Life Mission, Part 3, the stories of Arturo Schomburg and Carter G. Woodson. Please join us, EVPL Presents, next week for Part 4, our final part to this series. Thank you so much again for joining us, and check out the sources we have posted after this video. Bye!